Welcome back, friends and family. This is Codiferrous, and today I am bringing you the long-awaited video on Ninja Gaiden 2, All Bosses Ranked. For this video, I will be going over all 21 major boss fights, analyzing their attacks, defenses, and abilities, as well as providing strategies against them. Before we dive into things, it is very important to make a few notes. Firstly, all game footage that you're about to see is from my own recent Let's Play of the game, which is a first-time blind playthrough, which means I'm looking at these bosses from the perspective of a player, such as myself, who ran through the Ninja Gaiden 2 story for the first time on Path of the Warrior. Next, because this boss ranking video is based on my own personal experience, this means that everything that follows is wholly my opinion, and not meant to be taken as undisputable facts. I'm also making this list for the original release of Ninja Gaiden 2, not the Sigma remake for PS4. With that said, the Dark Dragon and the Statue of Liberty will not be on this list. Another thing to note is that I defeated the vast majority of these bosses using the Dragon Sword. Also, as some of you already know, Ninja Gaiden 2 is very partial to repeat boss fights. For this reason, I will be covering repeat boss fights only if they hold some significance in their differences. Lastly, and most obviously, there are major spoilers ahead. Now strap in your strap-ons, because here comes another lengthy boss rank video straight from my oven to your doorstep. Enjoy. Starting off our list at number 21, we have Shadow Ninja Rasetsu. Very early into the game, after learning the basic controls and getting some familiarity with fighting the disposable ninjas, Ryu will chase after Sonya's captors, but not before he finds himself in a face-off with Shadow Ninja Rasetsu, who then proceeds to sacrifice his sex life and a hellish transformation into, well, this. Rasetsu has a small pool of attacks, and while he may be intimidating at first, once you realize how much damage you do to him with your level 1 Dragon Sword, your confidence and expertise in button mashing will take you to the top. This will also be the point of the game where you discover the textbook bullshittery of grapples that every boss and enemy can employ. He stumbles from your attacks most of the time, so take advantage to get full combos in and immediately darting away as to avoid a counterattack. When Rasetsu finishes a combo, he usually has a pretty generous window for you to get back into the fray for another beatdown. Alternatively, his combos are interruptible. That is, if you can sneak in your own attack, you'll be able to stop whatever he's doing and fillet his gonads. There isn't much to say about this boss, as the fight will be over in about 10 seconds. Not to worry, as he will promptly rematch you with his entourage of B-boys. In the rematch, the method to defeat him remains the same. Just be aware of his B-boys' projectiles. Rasetsu's rematch is a little harder than his first encounter because of these extra enemies, but it is still easy enough to where it does not secure a second position on this list. In comparison to Mirai from the first game, this is a very reasonable first boss to start off your descent into madness. Number 20, Giant Deathworm. So you're walking through some tunnels covered in what can only be described as the aftermath of a hangover when you are ambushed by the sneaky sleuth of a snake. Without any introduction, welcome to the lair of the Giant Deathworm. This boss only has two methods of attack. He will run you over, or he'll run you over and take you for a ride. At first, this boss seems nearly impossible to overcome, but he's actually one of the few bosses that requires zero skill to beat. To cheat the Deathworm, just dip into one of the side caverns. Then rush into the main tunnel and double back right into your safe room. Begin charging up the Fiend's Bane bow, and when he passes by, let it rip. It'll take an arrow or two before you get the rhythm down, but a level 2 ultimate arrow does great damage to him. Just shoot him up like a relapsing addict and all is well. If you happen to be out of arrows, don't worry, you can continue the strat utilizing the ultimate technique of the Scythe, Lunar, or Kusarigama. I'd recommend the Scythe personally. Rinse and repeat this brain dead method for about 2 minutes, just popping out there and dipping back in, and you'll be done in no time. Number 19, Greater Fiend Alexei, Ruler of Lightning. Upon our arrival to New York City, we are greeted with the romantic cinematic of a metrosexual man's acquitted love for a remarkably curvy copper lady. Unfortunately for Alexei, Ryu is determined to come between the lady of his loins and subsequently humiliate him in front of her. Alexei will make a grand introduction before creating a battle platform atop the Statue of Liberty. Given that he comes directly after Gigadeath, Alexei is a laughably easy boss. In my run, I defeated him so quickly that I'm not even certain that I was able to record his full moveset. He has a basic boss combo where he strikes 3 times, but you don't have to worry much about this given that it's not a guard piercer. On occasion, he may try to sneak in a sucker punch at the end of this combo, which can catch you if you're not on the lookout for it. Whenever Alexei completes a combo, he is highly vulnerable to attack. Rotate through one full combo and then dart away, as you will trigger his revenge value if you get greedy. This comes in the form of an electric burst. He does have a grapple, but I didn't get to study it too much given that he only hit me with it on one occasion. For his grapple, Alexei will sort of fly up and then down before rushing at you. Watch for that telegraph before making your move. As you can see here, I accidentally dodged it when he tried going in on me for the grapple. His ultimate technique, aka the Lightning Cyclone, is a move where he winds himself up like a murderous Beyblade, getting invincibility frames all the while before launching at Ryu. This move only hits one time, and it's really more of an annoyance than an actual attack that you need to be worried about. Full aggression for this fight is the key. Go in on him like an otter in heat, and you should power through just about everything he's got to offer. Alexei finds himself in the bottom 3 for this list for quite a few reasons. First, his attacks are not particularly devastating by any stretch of the imagination. Second, he does not get armor on any of his attacks, save for his revenge value and the startup of his combo. This roughly translates to meaning that he's vulnerable about, 95% of the time. But what is really his downfall here is that he has the biggest handicap that you could ever give a boss. When he takes enough damage, Alexei will go into a down state, where you can then proceed to lock-sock him for 20% of his health. I mean, what a letdown for your first encounter with a greater fiend. This boss irritates me so much, but we'll get to that in just a minute. Number 18, Nuclear Armadillo, aka the cheap-shotting bastard. The Nuclear Armadillo is encountered in a back-to-back boss fight right after your second fight with Genshin. The Armadillo really only has 5 attacks. He utilizes a tail swipe and a mouth grapple as his 2 basic attacks. If you remain at long range, he'll blow a highly concentrated vape cloud in your direction, which is easily interrupted. Occasionally, he'll erupt and scatter small meteors in a circle around him. Don't pay too much mind to this though, as they have a high chance to miss you. For the Armadillo's ultimate technique, he'll bounce around like a crackhead coked on catnip while simultaneously trying to flatten you. It's important to note that when he charges you with this attack, he'll sometimes bounce back towards you for a second, or even a third pass. Hold off on dodging this until the very last second, as he has solid tracking on you and will follow you if you dodge too early. Nuclear Armadillo's weak point is his face. On my first attempt, I spent a solid amount of time slapping his ass and getting nowhere. Forget all that noise. Just walk right up and Mike Tyson his face. Yes, this puts you at risk for his grapple, but once you learn the wind-up for his grapple, a well-timed dodge will take you out of harm's way, so you can resume that beatdown. Nuclear Armadillo will eventually power up at around 1/3 HP. This mode enhances his ultimate to where he will spew meteors while bouncing around. It's visually impressive, but just stay cool and keep dodge jumping and things will be a-okay. Upon killing the Nuclear Armadillo, he'll make like a Chaozu and attempt to detonate himself to kill you. This final Gambit attack will one-shot you no matter how much health you have. The only way to not die is to hold block after his health hits 0. If you die from this attack, it'll not count as beating him, and you're going to have to redo the shit all over again. This cheap shit tactic irritates me so much due to the fact that it's completely unfair. In a blind playthrough, you are almost 100% guaranteed to die to this. See, I don't mind dying if a boss is hard, or if I made a misplay, or what have you, but to present players with a blindsided one-shot technique that occurs after the boss has been defeated is textbook ass putty. It's bullshittery like this that makes me so glad that Team Ninja never got to fuck. So yeah, just a whole block and things will be Gucci. Number 17, Twin Armadillos. Remember the Nuclear Armadillo fight? Alright, good. Now make the one Armadillo into 2, and there's your boss fight. This fight takes place just after Ryu enters Mount Fuji near the end of the game. Ryu's minding his own business, walking through hell, when Tweedledee and Tweedledum come a rumbling and a tumbling down. Their moveset remains the same as when you battled the first Nuclear Armadillo, but the difference here is that they each start off in their enraged state. Not really much else to say here, seeing as how there are no new abilities or attack patterns. Try your best to focus on one at a time so you can minimize the threat as efficiently as possible. The arena you fight in is massive, so if you're able to, use that to your advantage to get the armadillos separated. The armadillos are not all that aggressive, so if luck has it, one of them will just be whacking off on the sidelines so you can chop up the other. As before though, make very certain that you block after each defeat, or else you're going to be insta-killed. I really debated whether or not to include this fight on the list, but because it is one of 2 boss fights that feature a duo threat, I ultimately decided that they earned a place. Number 16, Genshin, head ninja of the Black Spider Clan. Oh, Genshin. He's like that itch in your crotch that just won't go away. In the main story, he's encountered 4 times. However, we will only be covering 3 of his fights since 2 of them are very similar. With that said, we'll be talking about Genshin from his first and third encounters for this number 18 spot. When you encounter Genshin the first time, he can be a difficult boss because he's not like Resetsu, whom you can just muscle your way through. Genshin teaches players that a block and dodge function actually exists. He has 2 basic combos that he'll use interchangeably. If you get caught by a combo, you can usually block or dodge spam, and you'll likely get out. The attack that's going to catch you off guard will probably be his windmill slash, as it's fast and has a long reach that can even smack you if you're jumping. Genshin will also utilize his own flying swallow technique as a sort of anti-air mechanic. Because of this, you do not want to be using any aerial attacks if you can help it, especially your flying swallow. This is because his flying swallow will always counter yours. I learned this the hard way. While he takes solid damage from your attacks, he gains armor on all of his, so do not attempt to power through him. Genshin will also perform an EI strike that is signaled by him winding back his sword. Though this attack has a clear sign that it's inbound, my dumbass still got smacked by it about 80% of the time. So pay attention to his movements. After he uses the EI strike, he will have a decent window of opportunity for you to punish him. He also has windows of opportunity just after he's completed a combo. This window is smaller though, so if you're late on hitting him, be prepared to take some damage yourself when he begins his next move. The strategy for your third encounter with him remains the same as this, seeing as how the arena is similar and he pretty much has the exact same moveset. The only true difference between this fight and the third encounter is that Genshin's EI strike becomes more deadly in the form of the Izuna drop. But I digress. Take your time in each instance. There's no pressure to speedrun either of these fights, because if you do, Genshin will suck the speed right out of you, and all you're going to be left with is the runs. Number 15, the Archfiend. Birthing his way into the 15th spot is the final boss, the Archfiend. After being stirred to consciousness, the Archfiend hatches from his placenta egg thingy and immediately slides into Ryu's DMs. I really want to know what sort of substances one needs to ingest to come up with a design like this, but because he's really not much more than just a hissing fetus, he only uses 4 attacks. His primary means of clapping cheeks will be with his meaty cheek clappers. These are lumbering slams that are too easy to dodge. The hitbox for these slams is tighter than an asshole squirted with lemon juice. Half the time, you won't even have to move. Just sort of exist, and nothing's going to happen. For his most annoying attack, he'll spawn specters that will home in on you from above. If your timing is on, you can actually destroy these specters as they descend to avoid their damage. Be wary though, as he launches quite a few of them and getting hit by just one will usually result in getting hit by several more. Alternatively, you can roll jump out of the way as well. The Archfiend's strongest attack comes in the form of a laser that he executes in the spirit of Nappa's Breaker Cannon. This attack requires you to dodge, and failing to do so will result in a punishing amount of damage. The Archfiend's final attack comes in the form of a retaliation move where he vomits corpses all over the battlefield. For this fight, you must utilize your bow to damage him. Simply shoot the Archfiend in the face once. This will make the orb in his chest turn blue, to which you can then shoot the orb to deal critical damage. You can usually get off around 2 to 3 arrows before the orb turns gray again. Make note, however, that each time you shoot the Archfiend, he will always retaliate by vomiting corpses. Similar to how I vomit every time I see someone auto-lock Teemo. This retaliation move requires you to sidestep, or you'll literally be getting bodied. Simply repeat the process of shooting him in the head, and then in the orb, and then this fight is over. See, I would have ranked the Archfiend as being lower on this list, but he secures his spot for 2 reasons. 1, he's encountered at the end of a gauntlet of a bunch of mobs and bosses. And 2, I had to die a few times so I could learn the strategy to bring that to you. You're welcome. Number 14. Codiferrous the Blind Giant. One of the more random bosses in Ninja Gaiden 2, Codiferrous appears at the end of a bridge while Ryu is making his way to the Statue of Liberty. The peculiar thing about him, though, is that despite being the Blind Giant, Codiferrous seems to have no problem tracking and smacking. I guess he can see with his nose? Anyways, Codiferrous has a pretty basic move pool. Swipe, stomp, toss a card or two, and of course a grapple. This boss is actually pretty troubling at first and can really punish you if you rush him head on. You're at risk of getting hit by his most powerful attacks if you're directly in front of him, so if you can, position yourself to his side or back. Yes, you run the risk of getting stomped or swept, but as luck would have it, you are actually able to guard against his sweep. But even if you don't, this hurts far less than his grapple and scream. Oh yeah, his scream. Codiferrous's most devastating attack occurs when he screams in a cone in front of him. This scream deals close to 50% of your total health bar if it connects. Do not rely on the flying swallow for this fight, as it will only sometimes hit, but it leaves you wide open for attack once you land. Codiferrous is encountered again later on, accompanied by battle mechs, but I would argue that it is actually easier to beat on the second run-in because of how strong you are at that point. For his second encounter, just utilize Ninpo and obliteration techniques to dispatch the mechs, and it shouldn't be too hard after that. For this reason, we are only going to rank Codiferrous from his first encounter. Number 13. Alexei Redux. Alexei's second battle occurs near the end of the game as Ryu runs his final gauntlet. Alexei has somehow abducted Sonya off screen and adorned her with the likeness of Leia's attire from Return of the Jedi? While reveling in the ecstasy of being rejected, Alexei catches a sniff of Ryu's Old Spice and goes from 0 to 100 real quick. Alexei sees a huge power spike from when you first battled him that completely caught me off guard. In this fight, I discovered exactly how much he actually has in his arsenal. To kick things off, all of his attacks got large damage increases, and he's more aggressive this time around. Alexei has strong gap close and employs two separate grapples, one from where he's far away, and another that he will use up close. In both cases, they're gonna lay a hurt on you. He also gains a few new attacks. One of them involves him summoning several orbs of lightning to shoot at you from a distance. Or up close, I guess. Alexei will also jump high into the air before doing a charge slam that deals damage in an area around impact. The good news about this boss fight is that he still takes a generous amount of damage from your attacks. You can play through the opening of the fight with the same aggression as before, but things level up when his HP falls to around 25%. Alexei will gain invincibility frames and then enter the Avatar state. This is where things heat up. Firstly, Alexei now has armor while executing his combos, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. While he's in this second phase, do not use Ninpo. His Lightning Cyclone from before now counts as a second revenge value that he will auto-cast when you use your Ninpo. His invincibility frames will outlast yours, and you will always be punished as soon as you come out of casting your attack. As you can see right here, I tried to cheese him with Ninpo for the finishing blow, but he spammed his Lightning Cyclone both times and ended up killing me. This is complete Warlock fuckery. Oh, and might I add that in his second phase, he also gains access to a third grapple. Shit the fuck? Alexei is not an unfair boss by any stretch of the imagination, and I actually enjoyed this fight, contrary to my reaction in my Let's Play. Nothing's too difficult, just don't underestimate him like I did. Long story short, play proactively for the first half of the battle, and then reactively for the second half.
What a fool.
Number 12, Genshin Second Fight. Ninja Gaiden 2 has 4 elements that can really dump the donkey diarrhea into your dung dumplings. The first is grapples, which every boss and basic enemy has. These are unblockable attacks that deal moderate to severe damage. The second element is an overwhelming amount, and I really do mean an overwhelming amount, of projectiles. The third one is explosions. If you see my Let's Play, you know exactly how much I hate explosions. But the final one that Team Ninja thought they'd sprinkle in for funsies is back-to-back boss fights. Do you see where I'm going with this? This rematch with Genshin has all four. Genshin has the same moveset from the first encounter, but this time he has 3 claw ninjas that spawn with him. Oh, you know, the ones that only ever throw explosive shurikens? At first I thought that they infinitely respawned, but I discovered that they do eventually stop spawning if you kill enough of them. But best luck trying to do that with Genshin cleaving the bottom half of your ass cheeks all the while. Ninpo will be your best friend in dispatching the claw ninjas. I personally use the Art of the Inferno, but the Art of Slicing Winds could be a great alternative. Otherwise, use the same methods as before in fighting Genshin, i.e. cutting into him after he fails a combo. The only true added threat here is the explosions, but also be aware that if a claw ninja catches you in a combo attack, Genshin will also join in with his own combo to make for a ninja McGangbang with extra dick cheese. Be mindful that you will need sufficient healing items after beating Genshin, as you will have to have that back-to-back fight against the nuclear armadillo following this cutscene. Number 11. Elizabeth, Queen of the Greater Fiends, Ruler of Blood. After Ryu crashes her vacation retreat into South America, Elizabeth decides that she's had enough. Ryu walks into a room to discover Elizabeth stewing about in a pool of blood. Given that she was clothed 2 minutes prior to this, it's strange to think that she needed to disrobe before engaging in combat? Maybe it's like Dragon Age, how wearing less clothing improves your armor rating. Anyways, Elizabeth promptly undergoes a transformation into this. Once again, I'm not sure how the design team comes up with this stuff, but we were thrown right into the mix against the final Greater Fiend. Elizabeth has a fairly diverse moveset and boasts much higher agility than the typical enemy. She has 3 basic combo attacks to get herself started off. One of them consists of 4 slashes that can all be blocked. The second one is similar, except that it ends in a guard-breaking tail jab. Her third basic combo simply consists of 3 consecutive tail jabs that have a modest range on them. She can choose to chain either of these combos directly into a tail grapple that hits for subpar damage. Her most annoying attack will be her Crimson Rush. She has 2 different means of using this. One of them is done while she's on the ground, and she almost always does this one twice in succession. The other form of this move involves Elizabeth flying up a few feet and then looping before finally charging forward. She will also use the airborne variant as a revenge value. While Crimson Rush can be blocked, it's a very fast attack that requires your close observation to avoid being damaged. For her ultimate attack, Elizabeth will generate an orb of blood that deals damage in a large area of effect. This attack also heals her while hurting you, so your options here are to either lay the smackdown to interrupt her, abuse her invincibility frames from casting Ninpo, or to avoid damage by keeping a large distance from her. The arena for this fight is large, so use that to your advantage. This fight isn't so difficult as it is annoying given how hard it is to lock her down and how she randomly gets armor in the middle of your combos. I want to add that unlike other bosses, Ninpo is actually quite effective against her. Now you do fight Elizabeth a second time in another back-to-back boss fight, but we're only going to rank her once on this list. The reason is because her 2 fights are close in succession to one another and she doesn't really see a power spike in between them. I mean, I beat her the second time using the Blade of the Archfiend, which although deals great damage, I honestly would have done even better using the Dragon Sword due to my familiarity with it. Now before we move on, I want to make an acknowledgement and say that I am aware that some would argue that Elizabeth deserves a higher slot. But in honesty, I didn't really struggle against her, and I never felt like I wasn't in control of the battle. But that's just my experience. When you finally defeat Elizabeth, she'll promptly make like Taco Bell Aftermath and slowly flush herself down her blood tub. Number 10. Zidonius. Upon reaching the top of a strange and intricately designed tower, Ryu finds this nice clear landing that is Clearly not a boss arena. Psych! Enters Zidonius the asshat, ruler of flame. Zidonius will start this fight off by flying around and abusing range attacks. The problem with this fight is that it is very difficult, if at all possible, to damage him while he flits about. Now, if he never decides to land, just go ahead and reset your console, because you just lose. While flying, Zidonius will throw fireballs at high speeds, summon flame geysers, take dive bombs, and summon his B-boys to assist him. Oh yeah, and his B-boys are none other than those annoying-ass water skaters. When he finally lands, he assaults you with highly aggressive, highly armored combo attacks. His attacks deal severe damage, have low windup, and leave very little window for a clean counterattack. He also has the worst possible grapple. I mean, what is this shit? As a player, you're just stuck here as an innocent bystander to bear witness to the hero helplessly getting bodied by Satan's knockoff. Fuck, it's like watching Jesus Christ getting flogged by Pontius Pilate. This battle is grueling once you couple all this with Zidonius' above average defensive stat. To beat him, you need to stay close.
But Codiferrous, doesn't that put me in range of his grapple?
Yes, plebe, but it's either that or you get picked off by his homies and range attacks. His combo finishers always contain guard breakers, which can easily chain into another combo, so be certain to avoid his final hits lest you be punished. He will execute his dive bomb attack on your location every time he goes to land, so keep your fingers poised for that reverse wind maneuver. Cut into his guard and utilize the flying swallow to gap close before he can employ a ranged assault. To deal with his adds, use the Izuna drop, as it is the only combo that would completely kill them from full health. Either that, or dispatch them with Ninpo. At the end of all this, you'll never be so relieved to see someone die. At least until he rematches you for his Redux fight at Mount Fuji. But don't worry, he is exactly the same in his Redux fight as he is in this first encounter, and arguably easier in the rematch considering how large the fight arena is and how strong you are at that point. But because his Redux fight has no real significant difference from the first encounter, Zidonius does not secure another spot on this list. Number 9, Fiend Genshin. Wowee! Look, it's Genshin! Again! After proceeding towards the final antechamber of the Archfiend, Genshin, resurrected by Elizabeth into this fiendish incarnation, makes ready for his fourth and final challenge of the Dragon Ninja. Genshin has the same old move pool as before, but with a lot of added aggression. However, he now uses and abuses one of the most infuriating grapples that this game has to offer. Genshin will do a 4-hit combo that goes overhead slash, claw, overhead slash, claw. The second overhead slash will pierce your guard, which sets up the second claw attack. This claw attack tosses you into the air to put you on the receiving end of his Izuna drop. To my knowledge, this is the single most damaging attack in the game, dealing over 60% of your max health. Or better understood as being the equivalent to the amount that a grains of spiritual life would heal you for. Oh, fuck this. The worst part is, even if you dodge the swing attack, the follow-up grab will still go through, and if you're still close enough to him at this point, he will execute the Izuna drop anyways. I didn't find a way to completely counter this, given that it's weaved into one of his combo attacks. When I first fought him, he didn't do this attack until I got him to literally 1 HP, so I had therefore assumed it was a move that he gained access to in like a second phase of sorts. But after he cheesed me with it in this first match, he then opened with it in my redemption match. Why didn't any of you tell me how bullshit this game is? The best way to defeat Genshin is to use your same tricks as previous. Even though he's undergone a bit of a power-up, his attack patterns are the same for the most part. He will still have windows of vulnerability after he completes a combo, but again, don't get greedy, because he will randomly decide that he's had enough of Daddy's belt and armor through your attacks. Fiend Genshin finds himself higher on this list than his other iterations due to his increased aggression, liberal use of the Izuna drop, being encountered after a collection of enemies in boss fights, and once again being featured in another back-to-back appearance with another boss. Number 8, the Archfiend, True Form. Imagine the scene. You spent 25 minutes firing arrows fruitlessly at an oversized bone fetus. You finally uncovered the strategy for victory, being low on health elixirs, patience, and hope, but you persist through it all to reach the final cutscene. Ryu stands victorious as his e-girl makes her way to accompany him. But uh-oh, what's this? It looks like Professor Hayabusa added an extra ingredient to the concoction. Chemical ass! You all know Team Ninja was tickling themselves with their own taint hairs at this one. One drop of Ryu's blood was all the nutrition that this patient succubus needed to ascend to his Super Saiyan state. The final boss makes his way into the number 8 slot, bringing all the typical annoyances and challenges that you've come to love so far. The Archfiend in his true form is much smaller than his fetal state, but if you've ever seen Goku vs. Janemba, you should know the concentration levels of bullshittery are about to reach critical status. The Archfiend is pseudo-large in stature, and will spend the fight in 3 different phases that he will rotate throughout. He typically opens by attaching himself onto the cliff, and this is where you can get all your damage in. His moveset here includes a wide swipe, a death ray, and his grapple. His grapple has a bit of a telegraph to it, which makes it more manageable to dodge than previous bosses' mystical whack shit. But if you're greedy like me, you're going to be taking some serious punishment. But sometimes though, you're not even being greedy. He's just being an asshat. Now I know what you're wondering. Codiferrous, what is an asshat? An asshat is a linguistic term used to describe those whose assery levels have transcended the stock limitations of the average human to where one's head has in fact transfigured into a second ass, thereby giving the appearance of wearing an ass as a chapeau. When the Archfiend tires of seeing how long he can maintain a pull-up position, he will rotate to either being airborne or he will land on the platform with you. While he's airborne, he will throw any and all manner of projectile at you. He will tire of this though eventually and come in for a superhero landing to take the fight to the ground. He's vulnerable here for attack, but the risk is that while he struts about, he can step on you for damage and knockback. The hitbox for this is so strange to get down, and I never really got the timing correct for when to go in on him between each step. So I only really opted to attack him during his pull-up bar phase, which again is his most damaging phase. But the choice is yours. At this point in the game, you should have maxed out Ninpo, weapons, ki, and a ludicrous health bar. Use what you've learned over this journey and close your eyes to enjoy the sweet release that comes with mashing that X button for the final time. But now this is the part of the video where we join hands and channel grand magic to protect ourselves from the upcoming assault of futt-buckery from these last 7 entries. Number 7, Twin Quetzalcoatl's. This is a boss fight that is random as hell and literally drops on you from nowhere. Now before I go in depth here, let's first talk about their moveset. The Quetzalcoatl's share the same basic attacks. They can shoot many small firebolts, pop off a level 3 fireball, and they have an imitation laser attack that mimics Pazu's from the first game. Not too bad, eh? Now let me tell you, this particular boss fight got me heated at multiple interludes, and here's 4 reasons why. First and most obvious, there's 2 bosses to deal with at the same time. Now if that's not enough, they're both aerial enemies that can only truly be damaged by your projectiles and your ninpo if you're lucky. In addition to this, they constantly spawn juvenile Quetzalcoatl's to assist them in battle. You know, those annoying purple bat tools. Now I could get past these first 3 factors, but the most important thing about all of this is that every enemy in this open as shit arena will only attack with incredibly frequent projectiles that they birth from themselves with reckless abandon. They'll send so many collective projectiles your way that Ninja Gaiden 2 as a whole will propel itself straight into the bullet hell genre. I mean, just look at this shit! What the hell is happening right now? Your biggest enemy in this fight is the goddamn camera control. You can try to spam the arrow button to get Ryu to lock shot on the bosses, but the problem is that the camera auto-locks onto the closest enemy. You will either send your arrows at the small purple bats, aka the juvies, or because the angle is shifting and the enemies are constantly moving, you're just going to miss entirely. The most effective way to deal significant damage is by standing still to charge an ultimate arrow, and then focusing on one of the Quetzalcoatl's. The sooner you can knock out one of them, the sooner your camera angle will stop being a boosty ass cuck. If the Quetzalcoatl's are in flight, aim just a little ahead of where they're flying. Ryu fires arrows faster than you think, so if you aim too far ahead, you're gonna miss. The best opportunity to get your damage in is when the Quetzalcoatl's sit off at a considerable distance and charge their level 3 fireball spell. You don't need to aim for their heads because the hitbox on them is whack as ass. Just aim for center of mass to avoid any glitches in the matrix. However, if they let off their fireball, don't try to shoot at them through it because the arrow will not penetrate the fireball, as I learned firsthand. Now you have to understand the paradox here, and what earns this fight such a high rank. While you're out here trying to get your fuck on with these shots, all of the ads are shooting their own fireballs at you, or they're using their more annoying method of swooping at you. As you might know from these enemies by now, that swoop has knockback which will interrupt your shots at the main bosses.
Okay, Codiferrous, I'll just kill the ads then.
Good strat, but while you are now trying to kill the ads, the main bosses are going to be dropping fireballs or using Pazu's laser. Remember that this laser is fast, covers a wide range, and deals moderate damage. It's simple to dodge if you watch the telegraphy on it, but if you're not focused on the bosses, it'll completely blindside you. Not to mention, if you get too distracted, you run the risk of getting hit by the slow-moving level 3 fireball. Now let's say that you kill all of the juvies. Guess what? They can just spawn more. The arena offers no coverage from any of this, so it is all entirely dependent on your dodge and attack windows. This boss fight is like serving up shit-dipped ass patties atop a brioche bun. And we all gotta take a bite. Number 6, Wolf Redux. Wolf, the Greater Fiend of Storms, is also my favorite Greater Fiend. Great design and respectable motives, he suffers from the same crises that Saitama has, and that he's dying of boredom from having no worthy adversaries. Until of course he finds Ryu. In this rematch fight, Wolf has obtained a new scythe reminiscent of the one that we stole in our first encounter. In this fight, he has the same moveset as before, including his combo attack, his grapple, his AoE, and of course his dreaded Lycan Rush. The difference here though is that he utilizes his Lycan Rush every 3.23 seconds. This attack is unblockable and has no windup to it. Now that's not quite enough, he's accompanied by a battalion of new enemies, the Fiend Centaur. These particular boss ads are 100% genuine, grass-fed, homegrown, GMO-free ass sandwiches. They resemble the Samurai Horsemen from the first game, and that they share the same charge attack and grapple. But of course, they have a few added bonuses. The first difference is that they have enough health to tank a level 3 ultimate technique from the True Dragon Sword. What? Anyone care to explain to me why a mob enemy has that kind of health pool? Not to mention there's a dozen of them. But uh-oh, what's this? Did they just fucking cast magic? You can bet your sweet, succulent, nubile cheekies that they did. Each of them possesses the ability to send out a shockwave that splits into 3 waves. These waves have considerable range, deal modest damage, and deal knockback. Pair this with an aggressive deranged wolfman, and you have a true fuckboy fiesta on your hands. The good news comes in that you don't have to kill all the horsemen. You only need to kill Wolf to achieve victory here. To beat Wolf, the safest bet is to dodge each of the attacks in his combos. His attacks are far enough apart that you are able to dodge between each swing. As soon as he finishes, you'll be able to counterattack him. The only time that this will fail is if he chains this combo into a Lycan Rush, which he's very prone to do in this rematch fight. Either that, or you'll get trampled by his ads. This will be one of the fastest boss fights yet, because after 15 seconds, you will either be seeing a game over screen, or you'll be treated to this cinematic that seems like a carbon copy of his death from the first time you killed him. Number 5, Gigadeath. Bringing you the most random boss fight in the entirety of the game. No lead up, no mention, no scriptures or lore telling about it. You're just walking through the subways of New York when this happens. Wanna know why they call him Gigadeath? Just take a look at this Silver Surfer shit show. The difficulty spike from your previous boss encounters is monumental when you meet Gigadeath. Up until now you've jumped into the mix and slapped some simps around. That doesn't work here. Gigadeath employs range volley attacks and electrical discharges as his primary means of damage, all of which are unblockable. His clusterfuck attack involves him firing off a gaggle of mini-deaths that home in on you. And just like with the Archfiend Spectres, getting hit by just one will usually result in getting hit by the following 80. It's like getting trapped in Satan's suckhole. On top of that, Gigadeath is an aerial foe, so your usual sword combos will have no effect. A head-on fight will get you so hard stuck on the game that you might just not play it again for like 11 years. But worry not, young ones. Old Codiferrous is here to reveal the secret to success. The Fiend's Bane Bow. Get as far away as you feel comfortable and let those babies fly. Aim for the face if you can to get maximum damage. Gigadeath has a very erratic and unpredictable attack pattern, but he will get incredibly restless, i.e. squirm around excessively, just before he launches a slew of homing mini-deaths. If you get low on arrows, then go near the end of the tunnel where there's a corpse with arrows that you can restock with. I've said this a lot about many of these bosses, but do not get greedy with sneaking damage in, because the punishment against this boss is often death. Number 4, Bone Giant. If you watch my Let's Play series, you guys would know that this is the boss that pissed me off the most. I actually had to cut some of the footage from that episode specifically because I raged so inexplicably hard that if I didn't cut it, I would have charges pressed against me for detailing such lucrative death threats at this boss. I hate this fight. Everything about it. The Bone Giant pops up completely out of place directly following your fight with the Water Dragon. Don't worry. We'll get to him in just a second. You're underneath New York, platforming ruined architecture surrounded by water, when you happen upon a skeleton obelisk. After obliterating the essence fodder, this behemoth of a douchebag springs out of the bone pile like a shit-stained daisy, and boom, boss fight. Never in the history of cheek clappage has there been so many goddamn grapples. Team Ninja, why? The Bone Giant has one of the fastest grapples in the game with a massive hitbox to boot. Given that this fight is just after the Water Dragon, you are likely ill-prepared in fighting him. He has two other attacks that you need to worry about as well. The first is his range attack, where he kicks the ground and sends a wave of bones at you. This move was really difficult for me to overcome because its area of effect is hard to pin down. When you get in close, he will do a lot of rotating sweep attacks to try to knock you back. The Flying Swallow is pseudo effective here because while it does hit him, it leaves you highly vulnerable to a counterattack. When the Bone Giant takes enough damage, he will fall down where you are then able to log in as much free damage as possible. I recommend using the Blade of Neridi or the Twin Dragon Fang. As always, do not get greedy. If you try to deal an extra combo after he started to stand back up, he will immediately attack you. And let me tell you, his power through will beat your power through exactly 100% of the time. Now what really pissed me off about this boss is that if you die after beating him, and what I mean by that is if you watch his death scene and then proceed to the next area and then die in that area, the game will put you back before fighting him and you'll be forced to run that shit all over again. This is without a doubt in my mind the most effed up mechanic that the game has. Not giving you a checkpoint after defeating a boss? What is the Stockholm Syndrome shit show? I actually died so much in this boss that I got good at fighting him. When my recording corrupted and I had to replay through the game a second time, I ended up beating him in one try. But that doesn't excuse the phallic torture I had to endure to get that good. Fuck you, Team Ninja, and fuck you, Bone Giant. Number 3, the Water Dragon. Remember how much your heart sank when you swam into this room and was met with a silent aquarium of ghostfish? That's right, baby. They took your childhood trauma, taught it how to swim, and then threw it in a large open room with nothing except them and you. But to make matters worse, you're in a room full of water. And in aqua combat, there is no dodging, blocking, jumping, or access to your usual combos. So expect to see a lot of this. Okay, but that's as bad as it gets, right, Codiferrous? Wrong. Swim a little further and... Sweet Mary of Jesus on the hood of a Mercedes-Benz, this boss is insane. He has a long-range grapple where he pierces you with one of his tendrils before whirling you around like a bola and chucking you into the summit of Brokeback Mountain. Fortunately, he doesn't do this attack very often. He's more a fan of firing homing ice crystals and blasting shockwaves at you. Might I also add that he has one of the highest armor ratings of any boss? You can run up and bludgeon his flaps all goddamn day, but for all the good that's going to do you, your time is better spent trying to align your crown chakra with your root chakra in hopes of obtaining autofellatio. But what really blows the constipation out of your asshole is that he spawns ads, and it's the worst kind, the godforsaken ghostfish. These spectral fucknuts will be all over you like the last female at a club. They come in droves to latch onto your taint like a goddamn lamprey. And when they do, they completely immobilize you and render you unable to do anything except button mash to shake them off. But you have to understand that while you're trying to shake them off, you're not in a state of invincibility. That's right, you can still get fucked on by the water dragon or more ghostfish in the midst of your struggles. Couple all of this asininity with the fact that it's all water combat, and it looks like you get to treat yourself to the deluxe creme de la coq soufflé. This boss fight would have actually taken the #1 spot for this video if it were not for the merciful gods of Ninja Gaiden giving us the gift of cheesing him.
Codiferrous, how can we cheese him?
Patience, my fellow protagonists, I will tell all. At the start of this fight, just don't jump off your platform. It's that simple. Your most effective weapon for this will be the bow. Now, unlike the twin Quetzalcoatl's and Gigadeath fights, you do not get a corpse to stock up on arrows, so you have to make every shot count. While on your little island, Water Dragon will only use his shockwave and homing ice attacks, which you are able to avoid. The best part about this is that no ghostfish will attack you here. It'll take a little practice, but you'll eventually get the timing down to dodge his projectiles. But in the meantime, just fire away and enjoy your tainted victory. Oh, but if you don't have any arrows when you reach this boss, then just know that all of America is shedding a single tear tonight for you, my child. But if you really want to take your skill, street cred, and sperm count to the next level, try fighting the water dragon on his terms without this cheese tactic. Your descendants will honor you for generations to come. Number 2, Wolf, Ruler of Storms. This boss fight ties with the Bone Giant as far as how high my blood pressure goes when facing a boss. Wolf is a decently challenging boss on his own, as I covered previously for his Redux fight. He has the same moves as before, and while he deals a good amount of damage with his attacks, he also takes good damage from yours. But the thing that propels this iteration of Wolf to the number 2 slot is what happens after you beat him. Following his gladiator-style death, Wolf's adoring fans become enraged, and you must now participate in an endurance test versus a horde of werewolves. These enemies are fairly challenging as far as enemy mobs go, given that they have armor on attacks and are difficult to stumble. But more so, the grapple of the elite variants can deal around 50% of your health. So they're strong, yes, but the real pain in the ass bit comes in the form of their projectiles, which involves them lugging the gibbed limbs of their fallen brothers at you. And the more of them that you kill, the more ammunition that they have. After you've killed around 10 of them, you're going to have more body parts flying around than an orgy in a windmill. I mean, just look at this shit. What in the HE double fuck is going on? For one of my attempts, I tried to see if I simply needed to stay alive for a set amount of time. But no, to get past this circle of slaughter, you need to kill the required number of werewolves. I'm not sure of the exact number of them that you have to kill, but you are unable to progress until you reach that quota. But wait, it gets worse. Here's where the game puts the gold into Golden Shower. If you die, you would think that you would restart at the beginning of the endurance round, right? I mean, you beat the boss, so shouldn't the game give you a checkpoint? No. If you die here, you will have to restart all over, beginning with your fight with Wolf. That's right, the game will pull the same crack stabby gimmick that it did with the Bone Giant, where they do not give you a checkpoint following your boss fight victory. Now the part that really got under my skin is that you need to do well in your fight with Wolf to ensure that you have enough healing items to survive the endurance round. Taking too much damage from him and burning through your limited supply of elixirs almost certainly spells defeat in your face-off with the werewolves. Eventually, you'll get good at beating Wolf, but only to get dumpstered by the wolves after the fact. This culminates in you getting so tilted at your repeated deaths that you'll become increasingly sloppy in your beginning battle with Wolf and end up dying to him, thus continuing the cycle. It's like a circle jerk session where all the participants have sandpaper in their hands. I mean, sure, we all came together, but at what cost? The best strategy I found was to herd the werewolves together by dodge jumping around the arena, then turn and burning them with the flying swallow. Promptly return to your merry-go-round again to regather the wolves, and you'll hopefully dodge the thrown limbs. After regathering them, turn and burn them a second time. An alternative to using the flying swallow to cut them down is to unleash an ultimate technique with any weapon once you've wrangled them up and gotten some distance from them. I'd recommend using your newly obtained scythe. Repeat this process of hit and run, and eventually Sonya will Deus Ex Machina her way in to save our favorite leather daddy. Number 1. Infernal Priest Dog or Die. That's right, the number 1 spot goes to the character whose voice lines mainly consist of his failed audition to join the local choir. After sending his greater fiend companions to their doom, Dog or Die decides that now is the time to challenge Ryu one-on-one. Wasting no time for warming up, he transforms into a thing. Now you might argue that I only died once to Dog or Die, as opposed to other bosses like Wolf or the Bone Giant where I died well over 5 times. But the reason that Dog or Die secures the number 1 spot is because I never felt confident fighting him. His moveset is diverse, difficult to predict, and deals significant damage all around. In addition to this, he boasts a respectable defense stat. As I said, the Water Dragon was my original pick for the number 1 spot, but he can be exploited. Dog or Die doesn't have an easy way out. The only way to defeat him is to take him head on. But where to begin? First, think of the most soul-sucking aspects to a boss fight thus far. Aerial phases? Check. Infinite spawning ads? Check. Devastating range attacks? Check. Invincibility frames? Lightning fast grapples? Revenge values? He's got it all, baby. Dog or Die spends well over half the battle floating around casting magic, and the other half abusing invincibility frames and looting your glutes. My strategy for this is to kill his ads while he is in the air. The flying swallow is especially effective here because it provides high mobility so you can dodge Dog or Die's projectiles, while also being on the offensive. It has a high chance to gib the fiends, so you can then finish them with an obliteration technique. Like Zidonius and Final Form Archfiend, Dog or Die is difficult to damage while airborne, and he's a huge fan of long-range magic attacks in this phase. His 2 main methods will be his Hell Geysers and his Death Ray, both of which are unblockable. When he finally lands, that is your signal to go in. Recall your battle with Doku from the first game. The same strategy is going to be employed here. Take quick slashes in between his guard and after he finishes a combo. Do not get greedy. Not only can he teleport away from you in the middle of your combos, but he gains armor on most of his attacks, so he'll power straight through you if you lean too much on the offensive. His most annoying attack will be his Infernal Storm. He gains armor frames and fires several bolts of lightning at you. Not only are these bolts unguardable, but he can cast them at any time, whether it be in the air, on the ground, hell, even in the middle of his own combos. The timing for these lightning strikes are very difficult to pin down, and it is almost impossible to dodge them all. Your best way to avoid damage from this attack is to cast Nimpo. Another point to talk about is Dog or Die's grapple. It has extreme range compared to previous bosses thanks to the reach of his swords. It's signaled when he winds up his weapons for a lunging attack. Do not be discouraged if you die to this boss, as he has very erratic behavior and has a unique experience each time you fight him. Given that at this point of the game you should have max Ninpo, weapons, and potions, Dog or Die still presents a challenge that requires you at your sharpest to overcome. Upon his defeat, the Infernal Priest will offer his body to the crab fetus, and I think we've all seen enough cinematics of Asian origin to know where this is going. Well, that brings us to the end of our video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate any and all love shown on this because these videos take a lot of work. As always, take care, stay safe, stay happy, and I'll be seeing you soon. And why not leave some comments down below about what you think. In the meantime, I'm out of here. Bye-bye. P.S. Grapples are bullshit.